I'd say the worst part of it was, there was during the time that I was going through a really bad breakup, right? So definitely during the time got really suicidal, lots of drinking, lots of, trying different things and all that stuff. That wasn't pretty. And of course, surviving like even your own suicide attempts, like that's kind of shitty, because some people think, oh, thank God. I was like, well, I can't
even do that right.
Can't even fucking do that right.
Huh?
So that was not a very nice time.
What the hell's going on out here?
Welcome back, another episode, Fueled by Spite. I am your host, Dr. James Taylor. I want to thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing with friends. Guest here today, Alika McGuire, McGuire Total Wellness, Dr. McGuire, if I should be so formal, chiropractor in and about the St. Louis, Missouri area. Mm-hmm. So I've given obviously just the 10,000-foot view. If you can, in like 5 minutes or less, give me your origin story and why am I talking to you?
Yeah, got it. So I was born and raised in Hawaii. After high school, I went to Colorado because I wanted to just see something else. And somewhere along the line, I got inspired to go into chiropractic. I moved to St. Louis, Missouri. I got my chiropractic degree. I went to Logan University, got my license, and I've been there ever since. I met somebody, my partner of 7 years now, and I've just been in St. Louis ever since. And it's just been, I don't plan on moving back to Hawaii, not for a while.
7 years? So
yeah.
How long have you been in practice?
I've been in practice for 4 years. We're going on 4 years now.
So you met him while you were in school then?
Yes.
Okay. Did you complete your undergrad in Colorado? And
yes.
Then, okay, so you didn't do like the prereqs and then go to chiro school and get your BS?
I got my degree in exercise science at the University of Northern Colorado,
okay.
Which funnily enough is in Greeley, Colorado. And if you watch a certain South Park episode, it's the exact opposite of Hawaii.
Oh, delightful. All right. There's some similarities in your story and mine. Mm-hmm. Obviously, coming from Minnesota, getting tired of being cold, moving literally across the country to Texas. So you moved from the middle of the Pacific, granted on a mountain of sorts, but a little bit different mountains in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Why Colorado?
It was so difficult to get out of the island. So what I really wanted to do was play volleyball in college. I didn't care where that was. I just wanted to do that. And it just got very difficult to get off the island. Money was an issue. It was kind of difficult, getting my parents on board and all that stuff. So I started out doing my first year of college in Hawaii, and I absolutely hated it because it was just kind of the last option, right? Mm-hmm. There was not even McDonald's was hiring in 2009, so I couldn't even get a job. But I did my first year of college in Hawaii, and then, once I turned 8, I also graduated at 17 years old.
Okay.
So when I turned 18, I found a program at my school where I could go to a college in the Western U.S. where I could also pay my in-state Hawaii tuition.
Okay.
So I did that. I somehow scrounged up the $300 for the application. I put it in and all that stuff. And I put just a bunch of different names in a pot, right? I was like, okay, UNLV, that sounds like fun. Las Vegas sounded like fun.
No.
Oregon sounded like fun. I had a friend at...
Never heard that before.
Yeah.
Oregon sounds like fun.
Sorry, I had a friend there. There was I had a friend in Northern Arizona University, and I had a friend at University of Northern Colorado. And I didn't care where it was, but for, Northern Colorado came out of the hat, and I said, okay, I guess I'm going to Greeley. I did all this stuff, did everything. My parents didn't know about it. And then it just came down to it. And I said, hey, Mom, I need a ticket to Colorado. She was like, why? I was like, well, that's where I'm going to college next. That's when I learned that I just stopped asking questions. If I don't ask a question, you can't tell me no. And I gave my mom no choice, because it was either that, let me go to Colorado, or I'm just doing nothing.
Okay.
And I went and I worked up this story. I said, I'm just going to go for a semester. I just want to see what it's like. I was there for 2 days, and I extended my semester into the year. And then at the end of the year, I officially transferred And I called my dad and I said, hey, I'm gonna move out the dorms. It's gonna be a month before I can move into the house that I'm renting. Can I come home for a month? And my dad was like, no, you're just gonna have to, it's gonna be a one-way ticket. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. So for a month, I just kind of bummed it on like different friends' couches, got a job and just figured it out.
Dude, that's fucking awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. Like,
yeah, I gave myself literally there was no other option. I was going to do this.
Yeah.
And in the process, I got to play volleyball. I still play volleyball. I'm here in Dallas now for a volleyball tournament. So, and I travel all over the place for volleyball. And it's been great. And I'm just not done yet. I'm still checking things out.
So obviously we're here in Texas. Like I said, I'm from Minnesota. When it came down to the point that I was moving here, like it was already squared away. Everybody got it. Everyone understood. But the date was up in the air because I didn't have a place here yet. I knew that I had narrowed down to 10 people. I was going to buy an office. I didn't know which one or where or what, but I had an idea. And a buddy of mine flew up to help me come down. But again, I didn't know exactly when we were coming down. And this was a Sunday because I had actually graduated from chiropractic school on Saturday. And then we're like packing up and stuff. And my mom's like, are you leaving today or leaving tomorrow? And like legit, my timing was, I told her like, Mom, it depends how this Vikes game turns out. Because the Vikings are playing whoever, and I mean it's the fucking Vikings, so they're good, they're bad, but they're never really good. And at halftime, they're getting their asses handed to them. I was like, "Oh, Mom, I'm going to Texas," and I just fucking left. Like it's just like that. Like, yeah, that's about it. Hey, I'm waiting till everything is set. Then I'm telling everybody. And like you said, whether they like it or not. I mean, it was basically, I'm going to ask for forgiveness as opposed to ask for permission. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like, and actually it sounds like your dad really put the nail in the coffin. You didn't give yourself a plan B.
No, not at all. There was no other option. Like I knew when I was a freshman in high school, there was no other choice but to play volleyball in college.
Okay.
And when that option it almost seemed like it was taken away from me, I said, fuck that. There's no way I'm going to miss out on that one.
Now, what do you mean it felt like it was taken away from you?
Well, I had some opportunities, so Graceland University in Lamoni, Iowa actually gave me a scholarship, and I had a lot of different academic scholarships. And if you're Native Hawaiian, there's lots of college assistance for you through various programs. And I think I had about $20,000 worth of scholarship money that could have gone towards playing college and running track at Graceland University, and I had to turn it all down.
How come?
Because from my dad's understanding, everything was going to be paid through with loans because there were not all of the $20,000 were coming from the school.
Okay.
So when he spoke with the coach, I can't remember the coach's name. When he spoke with the coach, it was reflecting that everything was going to be paid off with loans, and my dad said, "No, we can't do that."
Yeah.
So
thought it was all basically money that wasn't going to have to be paid
absolutely.
back.
And then it was maybe about a month before I know we played with like different things. I was like, okay, maybe I can go to the Air Force. Of course, I spoke with the Air Force recruiter. I was 17 at the time. My dad said, "No, I'm not gonna sign that paperwork if you want to go to the Air Force." And I was like, "Well, Dad, this was your fucking idea. Like, this was your idea, right?" And I got real angry. It was about a month before starting school in Hawaii. I got real angry because I overheard my dad. He's like talking shit. He's like saying like, "Oh, what did he say?" He said, he was like, "Oh, I thought my son was going to go to the Air Force and fly planes, but instead he's going to school to be a fucking sports psychologist." That's what I wanted to be at the time. And I
tried to fly a plane.
Exactly. I was so angry at that I took all of the award letters and I said, here's everything I had to turn down. And he looked at it and he was like, "Okay, go then." And I was like, "You son of a bitch." I turned all this down. Like it's not there for me anymore.
Yeah.
And that just kind of lit a fire. So as soon as I'm talking I had the paperwork like ready to turn in before I even turned 18. I knew this was going to happen. There was just I was like, fuck this. I can't stay here.
That's awesome. Did you have another plan? Did you have another ending or another goal beyond that? Or was it just, I want two things. I want one thing. I want to get off the island. If I can get off the island by playing volleyball, I'm going to do that. Was there anything beyond
that? There were those
that?
two things, and I knew I was determined to have the letters, to have the title doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to happen. It was going to be Dr. McGuire, no matter what. At the time, I thought it was going to be sports psychology because that was very interesting. I am still interested in the psychology of everything. It wasn't until much later that chiropractic kind of chose me.
Elaborate on that. Shows you how.
I fucked around in college.
Same.
Very sheltered upbringing. I didn't get to do a lot, so I overcorrected when I got to college. So it took me about 5.5 years to graduate. My
7
undergrad. Yeah,
those are rookie numbers. You got to bump those numbers up.
Okay. So it took me. I almost got my tenure as a student.
Fair. That's fucking Ben Wilder, man. Like the embodiment thereof.
It took me 5.5 years. One of the it's kind of embarrassing, but one of the classes, all I had to do was like really tape an ankle very well and all that stuff. And I had to take that class 3 times. I hope my mom and dad don't hear this. I had to take that class.
You're Dr. McGuire now. You're on your own. They can hear whatever they want.
I had to take that class 3 times just to pass it. And it's kind of, I think about it, it's like, wow, what was I doing? But so in my last year of college, I had to get an internship. I had to do a 400-hour internship to graduate. And I was going to do one over the summer, and I tried to do something through work so I could get paid while I was doing it. I didn't quite know what I was going to do because I just didn't want to, the psychology route just wasn't interesting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I just needed to graduate. And
so I know a lot of people with a BS in psychology that are waiting tables.
I was just dicking around. So I can't keep doing this. And I found actually one of the workers at the pool that I was a lifeguard at suggested, why don't you look into these chiropractors? And she showed me Dr. Ryan Maeda and Dr. Eric Sorbo, who practice in Greeley, Weld Family Clinic of Chiropractic in Greeley. They're wonderful. And so I Googled them, and Dr. Ryan Maeda was, Japanese, Asian guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to play the Asian card because this guy's going to like me, right? There's there's a handful of us here in Greeley. Let's try this. And I maybe emailed and called his office every day for weeks. Like, hey, are you wanting an intern? Do you need an intern? And this and that. And he wouldn't get back to me. He finally got back to me, said he might be interested. And I tried to follow up and nurture that relationship, but he didn't respond.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was like, fuck it, I'm going to call his office and schedule an appointment. I'm going to pay for his time.
That's amazing.
Because at this point I had no other option. I just needed to graduate. And that was the only lead that I had because I dicked around for everything else. So I paid for his time, and then I was just there. And, I got there and I said, hey, I've been contacting you about my internship. By the way, my knee kind of hurts. Can we look at that? And I said just about anything and everything I could just to get this guy to like me enough to say cool.
Right.
And then at the end of his visit, after he looked at my knee, I was like, so when can I start? And then again, he was like, oh yeah, just I'll reach out to you. He never did. And of course, as the semester's about to begin, I start thinking, okay, let's reach out. When can I start?
Yeah.
When this? And I was like, screw it. I'm just going to show up. So one morning I looked online. I found his hours. I figured out what the first day of the semester was. And on the first Monday of school, I walked into his office and I said, hey, I'm here for my first day. To the receptionist. He wasn't even there yet.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there yet. But I went to the receptionist. I was like, I'm Dr. Ryan's intern. And she was like, okay, you can just wait here. He's not here yet. And he rose up. I was like, hey, doc, I'm here. And then that was it. He just kind of, I watched him in that moment. He had 2 tables in a room. He adjusted 15 people in 10 minutes. He was just kind of going back and forth. Everybody was happy and excited, and they were just, it was like a fun experience. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then of course, he had me alphabetize all like 10 years worth of files that he had in the basement. I was like, all right, well, let's do this. And then after I got done with that in a couple weeks, he started talking to me about chiropractic, what it is, and all that stuff. And I was like, this is cool. Like, why else would I do anything else but this?
Dude, that's such a fucking awesome story. Like, I'm here my first day.
Yeah.
He saw you and you said, I'm here for my first day. Because obviously he hasn't okayed any of this. He just fucking showed up.
He was just like, I guess he kind of like did a double take. He was like, okay, all right, that's fine. I could use the free help. So.
Was there any sort of like stereotype? And hell, maybe this is still yet to come later in life. You guys will probably cross paths again. But like at the end of the semester, was there any, like, just, I don't want to say weird goodbye, but some sort of like stoic, like, it was good of you to show up, and like I knew you would, like, just I don't know, something.
No, there wasn't anything like that.
Or was he just like,
at the end of the semester?
Been a great 8 weeks. See you later.
At the end of the semester, I was like, hey, can I work here? Like, I had decided I was going to become a chiropractor. I started to put in applications and all of that, and I was going to do it. And I said, hey, can I work here? So I wanted to still be in that world, whether or not I was getting credit, like school credit for it. Like,
right.
I was going to show up regardless of that. So, and I asked if I could get a job. So they paid me I think they paid me like minimum wage to be there. I was like, fine, that's great. You know, I'll work part-time here and just so I can be around it. Because I needed to go back to school to get my GPA up just to get accepted into Logan.
Right.
I was
good GPA up, maybe take another OChem course or some shit like that.
I had to do I took like my biology class over, and I did that. I fucked around a lot in college.
College, it happens. Again, that's why there's plenty of people with a BS in psychology that are waiting tables. Because they went in, like, in a sense, kind of like you, they went in without a plan. Mm-hmm. But like, if you're going to have a psych degree, it better be a master's or a doctorate, because you can't do shit without it. I say like a biology degree. I tell people all the time, like, unless you want to count trees or count fish, you can't do anything with a BS in biology.
And then so at the end of that, I just, I started applying to different schools. I wanted to go to the New Zealand College of Chiropractic. It just didn't quite work out. They weren't gonna be as
what year are we talking about now?
This is like 2014, 2015. They weren't going to be as generous as Logan was in terms of like helping me with my GPA and kind of meeting me, getting me to a point where I could get accepted. I also applied for Life University in Marietta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. Their admissions department wasn't so helpful, but Logan was just their admissions department was absolutely incredible. They gave me like a flight voucher to go and visit the school. They were working with me on the GPA thing and telling me what I needed to do to get my GPA up to get accepted. And they were giving me resources for when I started. So they were really awesome about that. And then my aunt lived in St. Louis too.
Okay.
So it just kind of worked out. I was like, well, let's go ahead and check this place out. And I got to stay with my aunt. We had a great time. She kind of gave me an idea like, oh, this is where you can stay. And I lived with her for a while until I was able to find my own place. And I moved to St. Louis, and that was that. I have been there ever since.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny too, because like you're like, hey, everything just worked out. Everything just worked out. Like, but you made it work. Yeah. Like everything didn't just work out. Like you just. It almost sounds like in a sense, like the personification, if you will, over and over and over again of like the 3 foot from gold story, mm-hmm. Right? Like the guy like just gave up, and then somebody else came and buys the claim, and what world's largest vein of gold in fucking Nevada, wherever the hell the story takes place. Again, if he'd have just kept going, he'd literally be telling his friend the same thing. Oh, where'd you get all this gold? Well, it just fucking worked out. Yeah. Did it work out, or you just kept going?
Yeah, it just happened. I mean, I've always. That's one thing about what my friends say about me, and what I always say to myself. I always fucking figure it out.
Right?
There's just I'm just gonna figure it out. It doesn't matter. It's never pretty, but there's no other thing that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
If you don't have a plan B, Plan A will work.
Yeah.
Like
There was just no option. It was going to happen. I was gonna go to chiropractic school. I didn't care where. I was going to be a chiropractor. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no question about it.
It's like you know my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure you've heard her say this before. I have co-opted it from her. Hell, she co-opted it from a friend of hers. But it's fantastic. Jesus loves me, and everything goes my way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, just like that? Yeah, literally, just like that. Like, it might not go my way smoothly, and Jesus always loves you. He might not always like you.
Yeah.
But it's just like everything goes my way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because in some circles, in some cases, people, well, that's a really arrogant thing to say. But it's true.
Yeah.
Like, everything goes my way because I make things go my way. You make things go, like, it just worked out. Well, it worked out because you kept fucking working. It sounds lovely. It sounds relatively easy. I did this because I decided to, and it worked out. And then I made it to Colorado, and I showed up to day one, and I didn't have a job, but I did, and it just worked out. Tell me about the worst part of this whole thing.
The worst part of the whole thing, a lot of it was, I say the worst part of it was, there was during the time there was going through a really bad breakup, right? So definitely during the time got really suicidal, lots of drinking, lots of, trying different things and all that stuff. That wasn't pretty. And of course, surviving like even your own suicide attempts, like that's kind of shitty because some people think, oh, thank God. I was like, well, I fucking
can't even do that right.
Can't even fucking do that right.
Huh?
So that was not a very nice time. Like that was probably the worst of it. And then of course there was the whole like coming out and kind of owning up to the fact that I wasn't straight. Like I had tried to hide it my whole life, and I've gone back and forth, and I think that's a lot where the suicidal tendencies came in from. But kind of going from like, this is Alika as I want him to be, and this is Alika as he is, like trying to reconcile that was difficult because like, even though I knew this is where I wanted to be, I knew myself, I also didn't know myself. It was kind of this strange in between to be there.
Because I feel like, again, coming from a middle class straight white male, like my life is really hard. I don't expect you to understand. No, I mean it would stand to reason to me that is almost an ever evolving thing. Obviously, you are in a better place now than you were then. Where were you in your life at that time when these two things, the Alika that you wanted to show people, but the Alika you wanted to be, where were you in life when those were coming to a head?
Yeah, it was definitely easier as long as my family didn't know.
Okay.
It's definitely.
So was this on the island? Was this in Colorado?
This was in It was in Colorado, where I was starting to just be okay with the fact that I liked guys.
Okay.
Like that was where in Colorado I started to be okay with that. But still, like if somebody said, "Oh, this is my gay friend Alika," I'd be like, "Oh, no, I'm not gay. Like I like girls too," which I do. But like there's never been anything like entirely romantic when it comes to females. So that was a whole thing. I was starting to be okay with that, and then it wasn't until I met my current partner, Derek, who was very like, let's I felt like I finally find someone that I was like, okay, I don't care what my parents or anyone else says. Like if they don't like it, that's their fucking problem. And that's what it is. It was just like, this is Derek. He's my partner. And then that was it. I didn't care. Because at that point, I figured, like, however my dad or my mom or anyone else responded to me, that was more reflective on who they are as people and less reflective on who I am as a person. Because that's what it was. It was like, I'm your son. If you're gonna cause this scene when I introduce you to my partner who makes me happy, and it's negative, that says a lot more about you than it does me.
Right. Like off the spiteful thing. Like being spiteful is mean. It inherently is, But at the same time, if this mean frame of mind is bettering myself and in turn bettering others, and in all reality is doing nothing damaging or hurtful or caustic to anybody else other than maybe hurting some feelings, is it that bad?
I remember talking to my aunt about it because she was like, "Oh, are you going to tell your dad?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, "How are you going to do it?" It's like, "I'm probably going to do it in a public place." And then she's like, "Oh, why would you do that?" I'm like, "Because if he makes a scene, it's going to be a real fucking awkward drive home for him." Or he's, I hope he knows how to use Uber because I'm not driving him back to his hotel. Like that's what it was. That's what it was going to be. And of course it was fine. They finally met Derek. My mom's, who's such a lovable woman, just went up and gave him a really big hug and everything like that. And of course I was terrified because when I was a teenager, like my mom said that she just flat out said she disowned me. And just throughout all my life, Dad was like making negative comments toward gays and all that stuff. Even if something was even remotely like gay on TV, he'd say that's fucking gross. But I was like, that's fine. We're gonna learn a few things about my dad in this moment. And he shook Derek's hand. And my dad is a man of very few words. If Derek is determined to get some real conversation out of him, and I told Derek that if he figures that out, let me know.
Right.
Because I also would like to have.
I'm working on this son of a bitch for 22 years.
So, and I love my dad. We have a really good relationship. But there's very few words between us. We went to Vegas last year, and he and I sat down at a slot machine for 3 or 4 hours and just had a few drinks and didn't say one single word to each other. And to me, that was the most incredible like bonding experience with my dad, just being with him in this moment, saying nothing.
I imagine, a very strict and, traditional, for lack of a better word. But hell, it might also just be like, it sounds like your dad is just a American dude. Like, just head down, go to work. Don't talk about gays. Just, if it's just, I'm going to stay right in here, right in my lane. God forbid if anyone tries to introduce something new.
He's very stubborn, right? I love my dad. I'm not talking shit about my dad. If there's one thing I never questioned in my life, it's that I've always known my dad loves me. Like that is one thing I've always known. My dad has always said, he's never been shy to say it, that there was one thing that he wanted to be, and it was a father. So I know that he absolutely loves me, and I love him too. But that's not to say that it wasn't easy,
right?
Growing up, having these tendencies and just having that, battle and trying to see like, hiding half of yourself just growing up.
So any brothers, any sisters, anything like that?
I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
They're both still in Hawaii, and my little sister is in Colorado.
Cool. Really?
Yeah. No, she's in Fort Collins, but she did go to UNC with me.
Okay. Wait, UNC. Oh, University of Northern Colorado.
Yeah, the other UNC.
The other one, right? That's awesome. One of the things, like you said, I knew I was going to be called doctor. I actually just recorded another episode earlier this weekend, and my mom herself had made the comment to me when I was going to chiropractic school. You just want people to call you doctor? Yeah, absolutely. Like I want a title. I want the prestige that goes with it. I want the money that goes with it. Fun fact, apparently the money comes way harder.
Yeah.
They'll give you the title immediately, and people will eat that up, but man, that money is hard to come by. But one of the things, like, it seems that is relatively common in those who pursue further education, or even those who even don't pursue further education, but you want to go out and start a business, there's a competition aspect to it. I want to be better. I don't remember if we did it in this conversation. I've said it so many goddamn times. Like, it doesn't matter to me if I'm better than I was yesterday. But if I can be better than you, cool, that'll do it for me. But at the same time, sometimes we go after those things and we get a little cocky. We get a little bit too big for our britches. So that being said, do you have anything where, like, you were set out, this was going to work, whether it be for school or for your business or something like that? Like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be fucking awesome. and you're getting started, and it totally is, and then it just fucking blows up.
Oh my God. Yeah, actually. So it was during my preceptorship in chiropractic school.
For those who don't know, what's a preceptorship?
A preceptorship is kind of like your internship. You go into an office and you shadow the doctor for a certain amount of time. Depending on the status you're in, they'll allow you to perform adjustments under the supervision of that doctor, and that's kind of your hands-on live experience in order to graduate.
Right.
So I did a preceptorship with a friend in St. Louis, and he had kind of these big ideas. He was like, he wanted to open a bunch of different integrated offices that had medical oversight, nurse practitioners that was providing like stem cell and trigger point injections and those sorts of things, as well as massage and physical therapy. And he had these really big ideas, and I was like, that sounds really awesome. So he accepted me as an intern. Actually, this is another thing. This is another fun story too. He accepted me as an intern, but I didn't know where his office was. I didn't know where his office was. I didn't know how to contact him. I just knew. Actually, I didn't even know the name of the office.
Okay.
And like it's December. My internship is going to start in January, and I got into an accident. I got into a really bad car accident. A piece of equipment fell off a semi truck in front of me, and I just slammed right into it head on. And the next day,
Final Destination.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. The next day, I made a phone call. I was like, I need to find out where this guy's office is. So here's a really good opportunity. So I just Googled his name, and then I called a couple places, and I was like, hi, is this the office of Dr. Nick? And one lady's like, no. It's like, okay, thank you. And I hung up, and I tried again. And I was like, is this the office of Dr. Nick? And then they're like, yeah. And I was like, I'd like to set up an appointment.
Perfect.
And they were like, oh, okay, I can get you in next week. And I said, listen, I got into a car accident last night. I'm going to be there today. So just let me know where you're at. I got the address, and I said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. So I got there in 20 minutes. I said, okay, well, this is where your office is at. So I got that out of the way. He got me to an attorney, and I, started care. But during this time, he's talking about how he wants to open up to more offices and own more offices and all that. And I'm like, that would be great. At the end of my preceptorship, I asked him if he was hiring. Like, I'd like to hire. I always knew I was going to do something on my own, but I wanted to learn. And I was like, are you willing to hire me? He said, we're not going to hire you, but you can come in as a independent contractor.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, great. And with the intentions that I would eventually get hired once I'm profitable.
Yeah.
So he worked up a contract and everything.
He had those
fine.
intentions too?
That was his intention.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what was expressed to me.
Fair.
So everything worked out fine there. We started, and I was like, okay, my overhead was super low, so I was profitable in, a very short amount of time. And then in the office, there was kind of this mass exodus of like workers that just left. So 2 of the massage therapists left just kind of on short notice. They fired one of their full-time employees, and they just kind of got rid of that position. And then one of their office manager got fired because she was doing something bad. And then they brought in this old worker that had gotten fired in the past. They brought her back. And then there was this huge kind of like big staffing change going on. And in the process, things like paychecks weren't getting cut out, or the checks were bouncing or something like that. It was kind of, this whole thing was weird.
Yeah.
And of course, they handled my collection. So they would collect, and then they would issue me the check. But I had to ask, like, hey, can I get that check? There was no schedule on that whole thing. At some, fast forward down the road, at some point, my buddy, he just resigns out of nowhere, just resigned. There was stuff going on behind the scenes. He couldn't take it anymore, and he resigned and went on a 10-day vacation in Hawaii.
Of all places.
Yeah. he comes back and we start chatting, and then the owner of the office, or the majority owner of the office, starts taking over. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, hey, I asked, hey, can I get my check? And he's like, Alika, we've got to have a conversation about your contract. Okay, can I get my check? Like, no, we can't we have to have a conversation about your contract first. I'm like, all right, well, let's when can we do that? Let's do it next week. Like, okay, a week goes by. All right, are we ready to talk about the contract? No, we gotta do it next week. We gotta do it next week. Gotta do it next week. We just kept pushing this off on and on for weeks, to the point where I had to start using credit cards to pay expenses.
Yeah.
Eventually, my friend and I, we finally got to sit down and have a beer and kind of talk about what was going on. And I was like, wow, it's crazy. Lots of shit was going on.
Sounds that way.
Behind the scenes. We ended up, and then we finally had the conversation with the owner about everything. And then he wanted to retroactively renegotiate my contract, because he claimed that I owed him on like taxes for the collections that he made off of me.
Uh-huh.
Like, he wanted to collect on the credit card processing fees. He had this EHR platform that was just incredibly expensive. He wanted me to pay that back, and he was just like, you actually owe us money instead. And I was like,
the fuck I do.
I was like, okay. And then he said, oh, here's another plan. Why don't you come? He gave me this really awesome, what sounded like an awesome deal. But by then I'm just like, I can't hear any of your bullshit.
Yep.
But he was like, oh yeah, you can work here, and then whatever collections that you make, a percentage of it goes off to paying towards the clinic until you eventually own it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, that sounds cool. No. So I was just like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. And then at this point, I've got maybe like $600 to my name. I've got some left on a credit card, and I just I'm going to pack up and just left. I found another office that was willing to have me. That was, not far down there. Here's the other bullshit. This fucking guy, he comes, I tell him I'm not going to renew my contract. I'm actually going to move into this location. He found out it was a half a mile.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, well, you can't move there. It's only a half a mile. And I was like, there's no non-compete that says I can't. Like, you approved this contract.
Uh-huh.
You want to retroactively renegotiate and say, I fucking owe you money.
And also retroactively put in a non-compete.
Did you even read your contract? So I just walked away from it. I tried getting an attorney to see if I could sue for the money, and it was just like, they're like, Alika, just don't, right? Just be glad this happened early in your career, and just walk away from it. I was like, okay, whatever. So I just grabbed up all the pieces. I started my LLC. I got my fictitious name, McGuire Total Wellness, and I got a second cell phone that's going to act as my office phone. And I worked with a friend, and he was like, oh, you could use my credit card processor and my EHR. I was like, nope, I'm going to take my money and I will give you the check. That's like, I'm handling my own money.
Uh-huh.
Like, I trust you, I love you, but fuck you. We're not going to do this again.
Right.
And of course I did it in 2020.
Oh, perfect.
January of 2020. That's when
February and then March.
Yeah. So things were great, right? So January, okay, a lot of my patients followed me to the new office, yeah. So that was great. And then February, didn't have any money for Facebook ads, so it was a lot of referrals and people coming in or rediscovering me because they didn't like the old office or whatever. And then everything starts to looking up, and I'm like, okay, we're good. We can handle this. And then fucking COVID. Yep.
Spring break.
Yeah.
Halfway through March of 2020. The spring break that never ended.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I was at like 40 a week in a couple months. I'm like, this is good enough. I can at least pay bills.
Yeah.
And fucking COVID hit, and I went to nothing. And it was nothing for a long time. I didn't know what to do. At that point I had, again, just a little bit of money. I had nearly maxed out my credit cards, and I just I don't know. on top of that, I didn't qualify for any unemployment, any small business aid. I was too new.
Oh.
They had to take. They were doing it based off of their 2019 numbers.
Okay, the government.
Yeah.
The government.
And because I wasn't getting paid for half of the time I was in that office, in the old office,
fuck.
I could only declare $1,200
for the year.
Income. Yeah, so they were like, and I was like, "What assistance can I get?" They're like, "Oh, we can give you $250 for this." Whatever fucking program it was. I mean, I went from one stim check, from one stimmy to the next. So.
And what was St. Louis like during the? I mean, obviously we are in the great People's Republic of Texas.
Yeah.
COVID lasted like a couple of weeks here.
It lasted. St. Louis is pretty left leaning, so it lasted. A lot of businesses just didn't work, and I did everything. I had a portable table.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I will meet you at your house. I made myself on call literally anytime.
That's
I was like, you can just call me. So okay, can you come in on Saturday at 7? Yeah.
Yep. Sure, I can.
I'll be there. Yep. See you there.
That's fantastic.
And then I was doing other bullshit. Like I started doing like a little bit of PT in the office just to bill the insurance.
Yep. Something else to.
And then it wasn't until about like June or July that people started feeling comfortable enough to get back out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just, but from there, I had dug myself such a hole from like putting off credit card payments and just trying to pay rent or just keep be able to call my phone, have my phone on so I can call my mom and all that stuff. Going from one stimulus check to another. And it was just rough. I think I just kind of fucked me in the head so much because everything was looking, I was so excited about the previous opportunity that I had that I just couldn't, I had a hard time just reconciling with this one. I was just kind of a zombie, just a shell of what I was.
Again, middle class, white kid, so I too have known struggle. No, like getting off the island. I mean, it's one thing to move from Minnesota to Texas because it's a 16-hour drive if I needed to go home.
Mm-hmm.
It takes $1,000 just to get off the island, like minimum, right? And that'll get you on a Spirit flight to land at LAX or some shit. So it's like, there's a huge hurdle. Just the hurdle that you're talking about, just contending with yourself, at the end of your term, for lack of a better word, in Colorado. And then the shit show that was that first job in St. Louis. And then the shit show that was 2020 because you wanted to start a business by yourself then because of your piss poor future reading skills. What kept you going? Because obviously once you get the momentum going, in all reality, if I had to overcome the hurdles that you have, I would be so much further along right now. But even so, the stuff that I've done, that's what drives me. Is the fact that I know I've already been through some shit. Mm-hmm. But that's easy to say looking back on it. Like going through these things, what kept you going?
I always figure it out. That's just that's just kind of been a mantra. I always figure it out. There's no option. I leave myself no other option. I'm gonna have what I want because I fucking said I'm gonna have it, and nothing's gonna stop me. And it's a blessing and a curse because I will steamroll over anybody that wants to get in the way,
right?
And I will that's just who I am. But I'm gonna get what I want, right? I want to have a office where I can see people I can treat people who are just like me, who have to overcome these things, who have different hardships, who have struggled, and just say, yeah, I am you too. Like I want to be able to access those people, and there was just no other option. Like when I said I was going to have an awesome chiropractic office with happy people that are just happy to see me and happy to be there and feel good when they leave, just like Dr. Ryan Maeda has. That was it.
Why can't everybody do that?
I think people stop before they get started.
How so?
I think they look for many reasons why not to do something instead of looking for all the reasons why to do things.
Okay.
That's really, I think that's just the big thing. Like, just kind of get that out of your head. Like, I'm going to do this. There was no other option. There was no reason. There was no why not in that. It's fucking happening.
There's no plan B.
Yeah. There's no plan B. There's a lot of like, what if it doesn't? Like, what if this happens? Or I'm worried this might happen. It might not.
That's awesome. Dude, I mean, like, gonna wrap it up. But like, this wasn't scheduled.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you were going to be in town today, let alone this week. Swung in. Hey, check out the place. Yeah, sure, go for it. Hey, while you're here, let me pull out all my shit. Let's do a fucking podcast. Sweet, yeah, let's do a podcast. Man, as wonderfully serendipitous as this was, I really appreciate you taking the time. I really appreciate the surprise. I mean, this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
So
again, that's just pretty much how it was. You just can't tell me no. If you don't ask, they can't tell you no. You just say you're going to do something, like, don't ask. Just fucking do it. And that's what I tell my partner, right? Oh, and he learned. He's just like, oh, we're going to do this. Like, all right.
Sweet.
What time do you need me there?
Yeah, that sounds like something that's will be for the betterment of us and won't hurt other people.
Don't tell me. Don't ask me. Just tell me when and where I need to be. I'll be there. Yeah.
Dude, this is awesome. Again, appreciate the time. Yeah. Appreciate you guys staying and watching. Again, like, share, subscribe. If you've got stories like this, if you got shit you want to share because somebody told you no and you said fuck you, slide into our DMs. Because obviously, apparently I can set this shit up on the fly. Again, fueled by spite. You will learn more here by accident than elsewhere by design. Alika, man, appreciate the time again.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you all later.
Have a good one.